Welcome to the Luxe Leap, where bold women turn ambition into action. I'm your host, Reland Logan, and together we'll explore the big moves, smart strategies, and extraordinary branding behind unstoppable businesses. So I have a question. What if your book didn't just exist, but actually worked for you? Ally is a publishing industry veteran and the founder of the Writer's Ally, where she helps serious authors write, publish, and sell high-quality books that grow businesses, build authority, and create real impact. With over 20 years of experience, including time as an editor at Simon Schuster, Ally brings a strategic, candid, no BS approach to the publishing process. She works with entrepreneurs, experts, and mission-driven authors who are done spinning their wheels and ready to make smart, results-driven decisions with their books. If you're ready to stop guessing and start publishing like a pro, this is your moment, friends. So please welcome the ally every author wishes they had from day one, Ally from the Writer's Ally. Hi, Ally.
Hey, Reland. Thank you so much for having me. What a great introduction.
Oh, you're so welcome. As I tell everybody, it's one of my favorite things to do is introduce people. We have to start this off by feeling special. So, I know me and you've had lots of offline chats, and I'm actually kind of super excited to dive into them here. But everybody else needs some context. You know,
Sure.
We need a good introduction to the start of this book talk that we're about to have, sort of, kind of. So what inspired your Luxe Leap, that bold move that started your journey from ordinary to extraordinary?
I would say the first really big leap is probably the one I made from working at Simon & Schuster to being independent, quitting my job and doing my own thing. And, it was a really interesting time in publishing. We had had the dot-com bust collapse. We had had 9/11, which of course was very traumatic for New York City, where Simon & Schuster is based and where I was living. And the whole industry kind of shrunk. So we went through a few years in a row of layoffs where we were just getting smaller and smaller. But we were owned by Viacom at the time. So we're talking really large corporate publishing. And they were not reducing the number of books we published. We just had, a third of the people to produce the books. And at the same time, there were other things going on. So we were starting to see, we hadn't seen ebooks just yet, but we were starting to see the rise of digital printing technologies, what we call print on demand. Of course, the internet was becoming more and more robust, and there were more opportunities to reach readers directly and to do your own marketing. So all of this stuff was happening. And the inevitable result was that as self-publishing started to become more viable, more and more people started taking advantage of self-publishing authors. We had lots of scammy companies, lots of people who were probably well-intentioned, but didn't really know what they were doing. And lots of people who were straight up just preying on people, taking their money and either disappearing or not giving them really quality services. And I felt like I had all this information and all this experience of what it really took, not just to get a book published at the traditional level, but also what the publishers went through to get attention for their books, like what it really, really needed to be in place for all of those, dominoes to fall the way you want. And I wanted to empower authors in a way that I just didn't feel like I could do at Simon & Schuster or at any big corporate publishing company. That, the kind of thing they needed authors to have in place. Large platforms, huge networks of famous people, your best friend's Oprah kind of stuff. It was very clear that there were lots of people who had excellent things to offer, stories, messages, systems, processes that were just never going to operate at that high level. And so I wanted to help people not get taken advantage of and be able to really utilize all the opportunities we had. And so I left, and that's what I started doing.
I love the whole story of it. Like, I mean, I'm in brand, and so I think from so many different strategic angles on a regular basis, and just the authority that you have from having worked in publishing in, when we think of TV shows and we think of publishing, like my brain magically goes to late 90s, early 2000s. That's just where my head goes. And in New York, like, is there publishing anywhere else? I'm sure there is, but like, that's just the imagery that my brain starts to pop in. And so I do love that, like, you gave that full story of the dot-com boom, all the things that have transpired, because it does feel like these days anybody can turn out a book. And I'm sure we'll get into the discussion of AI and the impact of that.
Sure.
But um when you think, like, you know, I want you to take like a quick beat, like close your eyes if you need to. What was the moment that you realized your brand had momentum and people got it? There's a lot of factors that came through your history here.
Yeah. A few years after I had originally gone freelance, and like many people starting a business, I was doing a lot of different things because I was just trying to build an income stream. So
Mhm.
I was doing writing projects. I used to write those Spark Notes for Barnes and Noble, if you remember those. It were like the
Yes, I
Barnes and
do.
Noble answer to Cliff Notes. I used to write a bunch of those. I did ghostwriting. I did book doctoring for a lot of the major publishers. I was doing editing for a lot of independent authors and people. I even remember one time I was editing display cards for a jeweler. Like, she had like little cards that would talk about what the jewelry was, and she needed someone to write and edit them. So I did everything in the beginning. And it wasn't so much branding at that point. It was, I need to pay
Survive.
bills.
Hmm.
But as I was doing it several years later, fast forward, and I had a really good referral network and I had a stronger sense of what I wanted to do. And it was also, so again, print and demand technology had been a thing for a while. Ebooks had just started to really become a thing. Amazon launched the Kindle, followed by, a bunch of other sort of copycat devices. And I started feeling like people were coming to me for editing and
Hmm.
for advice. And then they needed to take the next steps. But I was just an editor. And so I slowly started first referring them to other people who I trusted. And then I built a little bit more of a formal arrangement with a small group of people so that I could, we could trade referrals. And it just didn't feel like enough. And I think when everyone started to really get it is when the business itself coalesced. And
Yeah.
we became the writer's ally. I'd always been helping people. It's really a heart-led business. Like, that's very much at the core. You'll find very few people who work in books that are in it for the money. Like, the margins are not huge in book
True.
publishing. Even at the highest levels, it's true. So I feel like people really started to get it when we used that moniker as the writer's ally, and I was able to start bringing in all the services they would need to self-produce a book if they wanted to do that into one place. And
Huh.
people started to really understand, oh, I don't just hire an editor and then upload the file to Amazon and expect it to be a bestseller. Like, I have to actually have someone produce it and do a nice cover and lay it out properly and put together a marketing strategy and all of these other things that happen to make a book a book.
That's very well. I love that. It's like it all came together when we like actually said this is what we are. But I think there's so many people who don't understand that there is so much work that
Yeah.
goes into a book beyond writing the book. And like I personally am not scared of the parts that most folks are afraid of, like the marketing and all those things. It's the writing that terrifies the living daylights out of me. Um which is funny because I'm so verbose and by nature, and like I read like you cannot well, you might believe it, but like the average human being does not consume over 100 books in a year. What the average American reads, like what, one book a year as an adult or something crazy like that.
I don't know
It's
if that's the average, but there are a lot of people who only read a couple books for sure.
like that's wild too. I mean, I am single-handedly ensuring the average is higher. But um when like I think of all those pieces, and I don't think people really dive into the fact that when they're like, I'm going to write a book, and I've met many friends who have done it not so well, and I have met many friends who have done it incredible, and I have friends who have actual publishers. So it it's just but I don't know that everybody stops and pauses and says, what happens when I write the book? Like, what is the getting it to market and getting the market to pick it up? And then some of the elements that come after that, because there is a PR leg to this that is also not always addressed.
Absolutely.
Can you kind of cover what somebody should expect?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people, for obvious reasons, they're very fixated on writing the book. I mean, that has to happen first. You have to
Yeah.
have the book to do anything with it. And also, just like you, I think a lot of people who are perfectly articulate and intelligent and know how to write
Yeah.
sit down to write a book and think, oh my God, this is totally different. Like, this is a whole other kind of beast that I have to learn how to write now. And so all their time and energy and focus goes into that. But it really is just the very start of the journey. It is, in some ways, I hate to cause anyone to break into a cold sweat, but in some ways, it's almost the easiest part, because once you have that draft, then the true work of creating a book begins.
Yeah.
And we're talking of everything from developmental editing, which is looking at that initial draft and really making sure everything in what you've written, first of all, that you've written what you intended to, because sometimes what's in your head and what's on the page isn't always the same thing.
True.
But also that everything is really dialed in to your strategy. So we want to make sure, at least when you work with us, it's not true with everybody, but when you work with us, we want to make sure that you're not just writing a good book, right? You can write a book that is technically easy to read, well written. You can get someone to do a nice cover for you, put it together, do all the things right, and still have a book that basically just sits in your Zoom background gathering virtual dust, because it wasn't strategically aligned with whatever it is you're doing in your business and whatever goals you want to achieve, whatever you want to use that book as a tool to get for your business. All of those things have to really be strategically planned. And a lot of people miss that. So you have to make sure what you've actually written is doing all of those things.
Yeah.
You want to make sure the cover, it's another piece, right? When you get into the actual production of a book, it's a lot more than just spell check. And even designing a cover, people think, well, the cover looks great. And you want your cover to look great, but it's about a lot more than looking great, because you can have a cover, again, that's very attractive, but very inappropriate for your type of book.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I mean,
We
we
were
were just
talking
talking about
about
this
that.
offline. Like, I was
That's
like,
right.
I don't like any of it. And then, well, you
Yeah.
nailed it. It's because it looked too rom-com-y.
And I've
But
seen people, like, I've seen business books, for example. I can just think of one not too long ago where somebody had written a novel, actually, and the cover looked like a nonfiction book. It was like the opposite problem.
oh, good
And
gravy.
anybody looking at this book they were going to be so confused because they were not going to understand that it was fiction. And of course, if you pick up a book expecting one thing and you get something different, that's the fastest way to a bad review.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to put a pin on this because we're coming back to it.
Yes.
But I also know that there's people in this world who are like, wait, you started and you didn't finish. So, okay, so we have to have, once we're done writing the book,
We developed it.
then it goes into development. And now we have things like having a great cover. We have we have all this editing. And then what comes after that?
We've got usually some version of layout depending on the format of your book. For most people, that's print and an ebook. So you have your print design and layout, which is a lot more intensive than the ebook. The ebook formatting comes after. It's a little bit less design involved in ebooks because everybody's ebook reader allows for so much customization. So it's not quite the same way that you have to design a print book where it's very static on the page.
Okay.
So that happens. And then a whole bunch of administrative stuff happens behind the scenes. Things like getting your ISBN number, filing copyright, getting the book into the Library of Congress, getting distribution accounts set up, figuring out what your metadata, that's your keywords and categories, all the ways that your book gets found on sites like Amazon or Goodreads or other sites. All of that stuff has to happen. And all of those choices have to be made. Even your pricing has to be taken into account as a strategy. Sometimes people kill their momentum by pricing a book too high in the beginning, or give off an impression that it's not professional enough by pricing it too low. So there's all of these decisions that have to be made. And then, of course, once the book itself is produced and uploaded and you've hit that publish button, you got to market it. You got to let people know that it's there. And as you said, that's that PR piece.
Yeah.
That's the piece that never ends. That's the piece where people say, well, how long do I spend marketing my book? And my answer is until you don't care about it anymore.
Wow, that's a good answer.
Yeah,
Until we're over it.
basically.
That is incredible. Let's go back to cover art, because I think
Sure.
that, from a brand perspective, I mean, let's be real here, everybody. Brand from the perspective that most people associate brand with, which is visuals. And if you spend any time around me, you will know that that is the last thing that anybody should actually be concerned about, but it's the first thing people interact with. And so that's actually really important to acknowledge in this case. That whole saying that you should never judge a book by its cover is one of the biggest lies ever told by man.
It definitely is.
You eat with your eyes, you choose books by the cover. And then if you like the cover, like I live in Oregon. And so we have like one of the largest, if not the largest independent bookstore in the world called Powell's, for anybody who's unaware of that. And so I go to Powell's often, well, honestly, because it's way closer to me than going to anywhere else other than the internet.
Oh, so jealous.
Yeah, it's like down the street from my son's school.
Wow.
So, or at least the high school he will go to, but it's not far from me in any capacity. Like, let's just say, everybody, it's 10 minutes if I can find a parking spot quickly. So you walk into Powell's, la-di-da-da-da. And the very first section when you walk in, if you walk through the main doors, is actually where cookbooks are. Like there's a bunch of like little knickknacks and stuff, but like one of the first sections is actually cookbooks. And I cook a lot. So I don't go and say like, I want Japanese cuisine. The very first thing I'm going to do is go, oh, that food on that cover looks good. And then I will pick it up and I will open it to the middle generally. Like I never start in the beginning for some weird reason with cookbooks. And I will flip through the pages and see if anything else looks good. Mind you, I'm looking at nothing but visuals at this point. And then if many things look good, then I will go to the table of contents and see what kind of recipes are in the book. That's me with cookbooks. Now, I will walk a little bit further. I'm a child, and so I really only read YA novels, everybody. I'm just going to accept it and move on. But I've also accepted that they've started moving them halfway into the adult books because I was in the adult section with my boyfriend. I don't understand how to shop over there. So I'm in the YA section. And what I will do is I'll look. And I want you guys to think of like Beauty and the Beast. Like there's bookshelves all the way to the ceiling, literally. And I will grab a book based on its cover and I will read chapter 1. And that's typically how I choose books. And so I think like this idea that, you can make cover art decisions, kind of like me and you were just talking about some women's business books. I have so much beef with women's business books that I just like shut down for a second. We're staying on task, and right now the task is covers. But there's so many that it's just not presented in a serious way, or like to Ally's point, like she's had somebody where it presented as a nonfiction book, and there's so much that is conveyed in visuals. Like the human brain takes in visuals 60,000 times faster than the written word, period. And so when you think of these things and people making these decisions, or just seeing shit decisions when you walk into your bookstore, Ally, because I'm sure you look at some things and go, that was a horrible decision somebody make it make sense.
Sure.
Because you have the expertise to be that level of judgy, right? Like I could look at somebody's website and say, maybe you shouldn't have written that. So when somebody is making book cover decisions, what would be your go-to advice? Just like general off the dome, and knowing everything that I hate that I just expressed.
Yeah.
Moving that conversation forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I want to just underscore what you said. Like we say, don't judge a book by its cover when we're talking about people. And maybe that's true for people, though I would argue it's still not true, but
it's still not true. Yeah.
But especially for books. Yeah. 100%. It is absolutely not true. We absolutely do judge books by their covers. It is literally what the cover is meant for. So when you're thinking about your cover, I think there are 2 really key mistakes that people make with cover design, or let's say 3. The first is, as I touched on earlier, the idea that a cover just has to look good, or that looking good is the end goal, right? Yes, we want an attractive cover. However, an attractive cover that's the wrong kind of cover, like as the examples we were talking about, where you have a serious business book that has a cover that looks like a rom-com, or you have a great novel that has a cover that makes it look like it's a textbook, right? Whatever that means, if there's a disconnect, it doesn't matter how good the cover is. It's not going to sell the book, because people are either going to pick it up, thumb through it, and be like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. Or even worse, they're going to actually buy it read it, realize it wasn't what they expected, and then leave you a bad review, right?
Ooh.
So that's terrible. You never want that. So that's the first thing. You're setting the wrong expectations when the cover does not match what's in it. Another second really common mistake that people make when they think about their covers is because you're the author, you know your content so much better. And you make decisions about what goes on the cover because you think the cover should be reflective of what's inside the book. The problem is the people that the cover is meant to sell to haven't read your book yet. So you're coming at it from a perspective of, I know what's in this book and I want this cover to, have callbacks or touch on it. Or this happens in fiction a lot in particular. People will get mad that like, oh, that character doesn't look like my main character, right? None of that matters because the person who's buying the book hasn't read it yet. All that matters is that what's on the cover is conveying something to them about the kind of book that it is so they can decide if it's the kind of thing they're looking for. That's all that matters. It does not matter at all if it actively, or accurately reflects something in your book. It just doesn't. And then the third mistake that people make a lot is the idea that they go online, they look at all the other covers in their category, which, to pull some advice out of this, that is the first thing I recommend is look at the other books that are your, what we call comp titles, your direct competition and your comparative titles, which are the books that aren't exactly like yours, but that are targeting the same readers, right? This is how you start to pick up on trends. This is how you start to pick up on those visual cues that your readers are also picking up on. So you see, for example, one year, like a couple years ago, all the business books had white covers with like bold text on them. That was just a trend that year, right? So the mistake is looking at something like that and thinking, I want my book to stand out, so I'm going to do something completely different. And in a certain way, that's totally understandable to make that assumption, right? Like it's not a dumb mistake. It's a very like understandable mistake. Well, sure, if everybody's book looks like this and I want mine to stand out, I have to make it look different. The problem is that when you remember that the cover's sole goal is to signal something about the book, if you depart too much, a little twist is one thing, but if you depart too much from what people expect to see, if you leave out the visual cues that let people know at a glance that your book is the kind of book they're looking for, then you hurt your marketing. You don't stand out. They reject it out of hand because they see it and think, oh, that's not what I expected. That's not what I was looking for.
And we make snap decisions. I mean, we do this with social media. It's probably even worse now for book covers because of social media. The average decision on if you're going to choose something, even humans, everybody, like I hate to point, like to Ally's point, like it was meant as a thing for humanity. Like you don't judge a book by its cover. Yes. And we still do.
Sure.
We still do. And you've been doing it since we were all babies. Like if you think back to being a little kid, I don't know if anybody else does this. I definitely do. Like I was well aware who was safe and who was not safe based on their appearance.
Right.
Now, I might not have always been correct as a little kid, but like your teachers all kind of looked the same.
Right.
Okay. Like they all gave off the same vibes. They all kind of wore the same clothes. Like you knew that is a safe space.
Right.
Yes, for everybody who's like, yeah, but there's these like other people. Yes, there are exceptions to every rule, everyone. Okay. Like, obviously. Yeah. But the reality is we make associations in our brain.
That's right.
And when we have those associations, we make snap judgments on them.
That's right.
And they're anchored by our beliefs. And so that is how the human brain works. And doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. What's important is that your brain believes it to be true. Right. You can change these beliefs at any time. They can be like bumped up against, but the reality is, back when she was talking about those book covers that were all white with like big bold letter, I swear I have one. I think Start With Why is like that right now. No, not Start. Well, Start With Why was like that, but also so is the 12-week year. They looked like this. If you're watching on video, all of them. And if it wasn't red, it was blue. Okay. Right. Or yellow. Like they were primary colors.
We had the year of yellow. There was like a whole year, like last year, 2 years ago, everything was yellow.
Everything was yellow. Like, that Jen Sincero book we were just talking about.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was a few years ago. Yeah.
I actually have a ton of books over here on this other shelf that are yellow from probably around that time period. Yeah. And so you make snap judgments and you're gonna like, oh, that's a business book I might want to read because it looks modern and today. And we do that with brands. Like we know if a brand's gonna be serious, we know if a brand's gonna be fun and playful, like we know all these things. And we know if something's gonna have dichotomy. I was just in a speaking workshop for the last 2 days, this morning included in that. And we were talking about like a 3-word punch, and we were trying to figure out how to write mine, which was very funny, by the way, because it was like, well, what do people say about you? And I was like, well, they say I'm fun, but they also say I'm super smart. Like, like we're trying to go through all these things. And then they were like, well, like, what kind of clients do you have? And I go, well, I have a fractional CFO and I have a human design person. Like everything was like the complete opposite the whole time through. And so, you know, those are things you have to make considerations in when you're building a brand, but like, it seems like it's also considerations that have to be put in when you are creating a book cover, because it is making that initial reaction of like, this is where we're going to go. If this is what I want, like, this is for me. Yep. The human brain is interesting. It sorts everybody. That's all it does.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, you know, a tweak that helps you stand out or distinguish yourself a little bit is one thing, but trying to do something completely different is just confusing to people who are, you know, especially when you're shopping online. Like it's one thing when you can actually pick the book up and look at it, but imagine how people are, you know, translating that experience to a web page, right? They're putting in whatever search terms or they're clicking on whatever category and they see a wall of tiny little thumbnail cover images and they're scanning down the wall. What's going to catch their eye? You know, I'm looking for a business book and you're scrolling. Like you're not going to stop on the cartoonish cover. You're not going to start on the bright pink cover. You're going to stop on the cover that looks like a serious business book, that has a title that grabs you, that has a cover that conveys some kind of energy about something you want to do. And it doesn't always have to be serious. Even like Michael Kalowitz, who's a favorite author of mine, just released his latest book, and he's famous for not being serious at all. He's a total goofball. If you ever go to his website, it'll take you half a second to realize this is a very funny guy, and probably I'd love to meet him. I'm sure he's a blast to be around. Either that or you'd want to kill him because he's always joking, right? But you know, but his books are serious. Like they're real, they're money books, they're marketing books, they're running a business and systematizing books. The content is serious, but you can tell right away from the covers that he's a little playful, right? It's not ridiculous. It's not a joke book, but you can see that that's that branding. There's that personality does come through, but it's not night and day different from other business books in the category.
And I love that you pointed that out. Like there also has to be an element of you to a certain degree. I'm trying to, who else looks at my shelf? I have like so many books of folks who've been on this podcast, like on these bookshelves, everybody. It's real. Jen Kim hasn't been on the podcast, but her like right-hand woman has. Let me see if I can pull this without dropping everything. No, I couldn't. I tried. And nobody can see it because my chair blocking it, but she has a taller book than the average book, so it made its way towards this. I stack mine like this, everybody, and they're all in color order and like size, and it's very intentional. Jen Kim's book is not your average woman's book cover. It still stands out because we have fun colors, and it says the word unicorn, which is like so abnormal for a business book. You actually have it's about having a unicorn type and like what your unicorn type is within teams and like what kind of people you need to surround yourself with. It is a very good book. But like it's a book on innovation. And one thing that I notice when I look at this beautiful thing is the number one company I think of when I think of actually, when you think of innovation, what's the first company that comes to your brain?
Apple.
Thank you. Apple tends to use colors like this often. tends to be more in the purple space, like this O here, but like tends to
That
use
ombre kind of.
watercolory. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just like, there's just so much intentionality that goes behind this. And I do feel like a lot of these podcast episodes lately have been more like teaching people things, which I'm down for, everybody. I'm down for this. Diving a little bit deeper, but moving from book covers, you know, you hold a very interesting type of business when we think of like consulting, because most consultants are writing books, not necessarily the person who is helping people write books. You know, I know two, you and my friend Holly. And so what decision or strategy most contributed to your growth this year, since your growth is based on helping others in this space?
Well, to be honest, last year we weren't really focused on growth. I very deliberately took a step back last year to focus on, health. I had some health issues going on. I was recovering from burnout. And more importantly, a few years ago, we did have some massive growth. And I'll talk
Yeah.
to you about how that happened in a second. But after experiencing what I had been working for so many years, getting the growth, getting the scaling, we all realized we hated it. We didn't like it at all.
And
And,
so it happens.
we're just like, oh no, this is not what I want. And I took a real big step back last year to really think about what needed to change for me and for the team, and how we could do this a little differently so that we could go then back out and start growing again. But the thing that worked really well for us when we were in a serious growth phase was JV partnerships and referral networks. Because there are so many people out there providing book services, and, it's very easy for me to tell the difference because I know, right?
Yeah.
But it can be hard, for your average consumer to understand how to make that choice, especially because publishing is very much one of those businesses where you don't know what you don't know. It's an iceberg business, right? You see the tiny little bit at the top. You have no idea about all this nonsense that's going on down here. So when you're dealing with partnerships, I found it's a much warmer kind of introduction. So I really focused on networking and meeting people who were running other kinds of businesses, who were targeting the kinds of people that I wanted to. So very similar to those comp titles, right? These were like comp businesses. So, many of them are coaches, consultants. Many of them have software tools that support speakers and coaches and consultants. A lot of people in that space are working with business owners and entrepreneurs and those types of folks. And I was able to go to them, and many of them have books. So when you're talking to somebody, like we were saying earlier, like you have a friend who already has a book, and you say to them, hey, this is what I do, and this is why it's different. Because they've had the experience, they can really appreciate what I'm saying. And they can really understand, inevitably, like 9 times out of 10, you talk to someone who has a book, they have a bad story, right? Like they have something they did horribly wrong, or something that someone else did horribly wrong for them, right? There's always like some kind of horror story. If you publish more than one book, you definitely have some horror stories. And when I go to those people and share with them, like, well, this is what we do differently to avoid those kinds of things, they get it right away because they've been there. So then for them to put me in front of their audience, where they've already earned that like, no trust factor, and they say, hey, I had this experience. Here's what happened with my book. Don't make my mistake. Work with Allie and her team instead, and don't let this happen to you. It's a much warmer introduction, and we found it was a really powerful way to grow our list pretty quickly and just meet a whole bunch of really great people.
I'm obsessed with that. For anybody who doesn't know what JV stands for JV partnerships, can you just explain that real fast? Because I know that's
absolutely.
not the most common term.
Yeah, they're essentially affiliate relationships. JV stands for joint venture. So it's a fairly broad term. It could mean anything from, promoting each other's launches to, like, I've had some partners who promote an evergreen recording that I have, a free evergreen recording, and they just send a few emails to their list about that. So it can look like a lot of different things. The core piece is that you are sharing your audience with someone else and vice versa.
Gotcha. I know I was talking to somebody and I said it and they're like, what does that mean? And I was like, oh, hold on, let's rear it on back. And so I do know there's some folks who are like just newer to considering taking their own Luxe Leap. So I always want to,
Yeah, for sure.
When in branding, you're very well aware that you have a whole nother language that you speak, but also you have to translate the language that you speak. We're a wild bunch around here. Okay, so you took a beat, and I actually appreciated that you were honest. That was like, yeah, and that version of growth led to burnout. And I think that that's important to acknowledge, because not all growth is good growth, everybody. I just, weeds grow too. Okay.
It's true.
It is what it is. So as we're moving into a new year, when you think about visibility, what has been the hardest part, and what do you think will finally work now that you're in a different version of seeing that through?
Yeah. I think in the early years, especially for me, visibility felt hard because I did kind of feel like just another fill in the blank, right?
Yeah.
Just another editor, just another publisher, just another, group that helps people publish books. It took a long time for me to really understand how to differentiate myself and how to really explain what I knew in my heart to be true, but what I had trouble putting into words, right? Like, it wasn't a confidence problem. Like, if you ask me, like, what's different between you and somebody else? Why should they hire you? Because we're better. Right?
The end.
We're better. I have an amazing team. I have lots of experience. We're better. But you can't say that to people. Like, that's not convincing. You need to articulate it better. And what I did this past year, while I was sort of taking that step back, this maybe sounds kind of contradictory, but what I chose to do as my one kind of marketing push for the year that felt like an easier lift was I went on a podcast campaign, which is how we met.
Yes, it is.
I made a commitment. I said, I'm going to do 50 podcasts this year. Yes. And I did more than 50. I'm still doing some because I'm just enjoying it so much. It's so much fun. And it really was this process of talking about the same things over and over and over in a relatively short period of time. Because it's not like I've never talked about these things in general. Of course I do. I talk about them all the time. But when I was doing like 3-4 podcast interviews a day and just over and over and over and over saying the same things and answering the same questions, I got to really experience some interesting things. I got to see what was really landing with people. What were the moments where my host was like, "Oh, I love that. Like, that's really good. Say more about that." Or what were the things that I heard myself saying that I recognized, oh, well, that is actually a core piece of who we are. That's a core value. I say that all the time. That's me. That's a me thing. So going through that process of being on all those podcasts helped me to be more clear and more confident in what exactly does make us different than I think I have ever been since I started this business. It was really a very amazing experience.
I love that, because I guess I don't think about it because I do this all the time. Like, this is a core part of my week is interviewing folks. And I recently have gotten even more clear. And I think it's because you're right. I say it all the time.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, well, yeah, that is the salute. That is it. That's just it. Like this year for me, I finally decided, I was like, no, it's called the order of authority. Like, people keep building brands backwards, and there's nothing wrong with it, everybody, because, I don't want anybody to feel attacked. It's because it's how you experience it. Back to the iceberg analogy. Like, you experience brands visually.
Yeah.
And now we're a little savvier and we understand how we experience it a little bit more, but you're still only experiencing the brand expression. When you have to actually work for somebody in brand, you're like, oh my Lanta.
Yeah.
There's so much more. And it's like, yes, because we need to be able to express all these things that I'm asking you. And so I decided that, like, there's just this order that things have to take place, which is like, we need an offer first. A lot of times, like, to your point about books and like the strategy of like, is it going to collect virtual dust?
Right.
Because it never made it to what is the end game. It's the same thing. It's like, do you know what you really want to sell?
Yeah.
Not what the gurus on the internet say. Like, what do you want to do? Where do you want to start? What is your offer? Like, all those pieces. And then I believe then you shape messaging around that, and then you shape visuals. But I watch everybody do it backwards.
Right. It's like it's order of operations, right? Like, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think the same way about book marketing or even book writing. I think it's still true to some degree. Like, yeah, you can do it in any order. You can do all of these different things, but if you do them in a certain way, you get much better results.
Yes. Like the results you set out to find.
Yeah.
No, you can do them out of order. And then you're going to have to go back up and clean the order.
Right. Right.
And you're still going to end up doing it in this order. You just took the long route.
Yeah.
And like, hey, cool. You want to take the scenic route? Like, please. Honestly, I kind of want you to take the scenic route before you get to me. I don't know about you, Allie, but like, I want people to take the scenic route because I want you to learn from your mistakes. Like I had somebody on the show who her name's Christiana, and she's brilliant, but she had this mug and it said fail on it, like going down the side. And it was like first attempt at learning. And I was like, I need you to fail. And not in a negative way. Like, I want you to make mistakes because to your point earlier, you're like, you couldn't tell what made you different. You're like, I just know we're better.
Right.
You had to fail to a certain degree to get there.
Right.
And
yeah,
that's
I think I think you're right. And I think for us, like you said too, there was never any failure, right? There's never any point. Like, I've been in business now, I started freelancing in 2004, right? So it's like more than 20 years that I've been freelancing. I've never not been able to pay my bills. Like, some years were better than others, but we've overall had successful growth all this time. And yet it really isn't until now that I feel this surge of confidence and clarity in how I talk about what we do and what makes us different and why you should work with us over someone else. That, like, yeah, I've had visibility all this time, but it's definitely hampered the results from that visibility because I didn't really have that piece nailed down. And I'm very excited now. As you know, we recently did a rebrand and launched a brand new website. And I'm very, very excited for how different I think things are going to be moving forward.
Good. I love it when people like love it. I don't know. There's just so much clarity, like the word that's overly used by AI. So much clarity that comes from getting that work done. And one of the questions I always ask every client when I'm doing their strategies, I did one earlier today, was how do you know that we were successful working together? It's one of my favorite questions to ask people. Yeah. And my favorite thing was, she goes, that we had fun.
Oh, nice.
And like, but everybody always gives a different answer. And you're right. There's no hard failures. I mean, honestly, there's one hard failure, everybody. And that is if you quit without planning for the quitting. Right. I think that there's a time to pivot and say, like, this chapter is closed. But somebody once told me, they're like, if you're going to quit, make sure it ends on a good day. Never quit on a bad day. And that sticks with me. It's like one of the things that like I hold true. I was like, yeah, because if you ended on a high note, then it was time for it to naturally end. Not everything lasts forever, but gosh, I watched so many people quit before they were just right there at winning, right there. So, okay, that's a lot of introspection. So now we're like about 20 years in. Oh God, Allie, I didn't need that reminder. That's been almost 20 years since I graduated high school. Thank you. Thank you for that. I started high school in 2004. We're knocking on the doors here, everybody. But how do you define success for your brand today, and how has it evolved since you began?
Well, I think early on, like I said, like most people, we listen to, the hustle gurus and the business books and the folks that are out there saying, grow, 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 scale, scale, scale. And that was absolutely my number one goal and mission for many, many years in the beginning, until I realized, like I said a few years ago, that no, it's actually not what I want to do. So I think now our vision of success is quite different. Our vision of success now is still helping authors to produce great books and books that get results. That's still very important to us. But I think now success looks more like having the capacity to serve all the people who want to work with us, keeping my team happy with the work that they're doing. I always tell a lot of my team members are actually contractors, and I always tell them, I want to be your favorite client. Like, when you see an email from me, I want you to feel excited because you know it's going to be a great project. So I think having a team that has as much work as they want, that makes them happy, they feel great that they're participating in awesome projects and working with nice, cool people. Obviously we have some income goals. We all need to eat. We all got bills to pay, but it's less about growth and more about having enough and having fun and not feeling burnt out and stressed, and just having a sustainable, enjoyable business that's allowing us all to make the impact we want to have in the world. And ultimately, this business is about impact. I've loved books my whole life because I've always recognized the power of books, whether it was the power of a story to transport you into another world and entertain you for a few hours, or relax you, or open up your mind to the point of view of a person who's completely different from you. Or if it's more of a self-help or, kind of nonfiction book, the power of a book to offer real solutions and to help you learn to do something. And I've always turned to books for those reasons. And I find that the ability to help authors produce those books and experiences and then help them get that to other people, it's like an incredible honor and a joy to be a part of that experience.
Oh, I love it so much. So beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. I giggle because every year Riverside tells you like what was your most used word of the year. Mine's beautiful. Let's see if we can beat it out for 2026. I doubt it. But if someone who's listening to this podcast right now, and they're standing on the edge of their own Luxe Leap, what advice would you give them?
If you're scared, you're doing it right. I'm a firm believer in the war of art. If you've read Steven Pressfield and Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap, these are all books that were really, really instrumental in my personal growth. And I know that when you feel resistance, when you're trying to do something and you become frightened or panicky, or you think everything sucks, or like whatever version of resistance, you're getting, the thing that's trying to hold you back, I've learned that like neurologically, that is your body trying to maintain the status quo to keep you safe. Mm-hmm. And unless you literally have a lion about to eat your head, you don't need to listen to those voices. You are safe. So if you feel scared, it's not a sign that you're stepping out too much, or you're too big for your britches, or you're reaching too high. It's the sign that you're on the right track.
Oh, good. I love that advice, because you're right. As somebody who studied psychology, unless there is an anaconda coming your way, you're okay.
Right.
All right, everybody. I mean, there's obviously other things, but like in the world of business,
right,
you're okay. You're okay. Yeah. And it generally does mean something great is about to happen if you just take the leap. So, last one, best one. What is next for you? Or what's the next bold move that you're making?
Well, like I mentioned, we just relaunched a brand new site. It was like a really, really big project for us. I'm super excited about it. I'm excited about what it says about us as a company. And I'm excited about what I hope is going to be maybe not a new category of people, but that we're going to reach a whole bunch of new people we haven't been reaching with the site and the tools and the podcast outreach and all of the different things that we've been doing that's new. All of that is super exciting. And I will mention that part of this rebrand and relaunch was initiated by the fact that we are publishing tomorrow. Well, it's technically out today, but Guy Kawasaki's newest book, Everybody Has Something to Hide, which I am so honored and excited to have been a part of, both because, he's an incredible influencer, and, his podcast, Remarkable People, is just wonderful. And he's, out there like helping people and talking to people about how to live their life better and just all kinds of really great things. But also the book itself is part of such an incredible mission. It's devoted to helping people understand privacy, why privacy is important. And in particular, this book is about an app called Signal, a messaging app. So there's just all this like new kind of next level big stuff happening for us. And as part of that whole process, as I mentioned, I've spent a lot of time rethinking our back end and our customer journey and what we're offering and how we're offering it, and how we're communicating value to clients. And I think now that I have new language and new ways to do all of that, this year is it's just going to be, I think, a really exciting way to re-engage with this business that I've been in now for so long.
Well, first off, congratulations. That is absolutely incredible. And such an honor, but like you've hit a new level, your brand's hitting a new level, and like good.
Oh, and a book. How can I not mention the book? And I'm writing my own book for the first time. I've
Whoa.
helped so many people. I totally blew right past that. I've helped so many people to publish their books, like real shoemaker's children situation over here. And I am finally writing my own book that's going to have my name on it. And it'll be out next year.
Oh my goodness. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So many amazing things.
Yes.
You should be so proud of yourself. I mean, and you even took a step back. This is taking a step back for you?
Yeah, I know.
So, okay, everybody. Well, we should all take step backs like Allie. But if today's episode has you rethinking how you're showing up and you're ready for a brand that actually turns heads, I would love to invite you to book your Brand Muta Brand Breakthrough. And it's my video deep dive audit that helps you see exactly what's working, what's not, and what you need to do to attract your champagne clientele. You can grab your spot at, for everybody who listens all the time, here we go, graydigitalmktg.co/brand muta -review. But if this is your first time and you've never heard me make this joke before, this one's for you. Hope you didn't try to write that down. Just click it. It's in the link below. So it's really there to help you start turning clarity into confidence because you deserve it. And my dear friend, Allie, what do you have for the people? How can they get a hold of you?
Well, you can certainly check out our website, thewritersally.com. We have a ton of free content and free resources to help you out. If you're ready to start talking about your book, you can sign up for a free book strategy call there. And I have a special gift for your audience. It is a recorded webinar, about 25 minutes, called Don't Write the Wrong Book. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It's about what does it mean to write the right book? How do you avoid writing the wrong book? And I walk people through an easy 5-step process for analyzing whatever ideas they're currently debating about writing about, or if they already have a draft, they want to temperature check the idea they've been working on. This will really help them get squared away. And they can get that at offers.thewritersally.com/Luxe Leap.
Beautiful. That will also be in the show notes, everybody. So, thank you everybody so much for taking the time to listen and just really spend this hour with me and Allie, diving into books and brand and all the fun things. And for both things, books and brand, y'all, let's be honest, vanilla opinions don't pop bottles. So I appreciate all of you. And if you have not yet hit subscribe, can you please do that? I think my growth goal is just to grow the YouTube channel. So if you're watching this on YouTube, thanks for paying attention to our beautiful faces. But if you're listening on whatever you listen to, also click it there. It just helps it get out to way more women. And if more of us women really went in to have more economic power, the world would be a safer and kinder place. Wouldn't be perfect, but it'd be better than whatever the hell we have going on right now. So thank you, everybody, and I'll talk to you next time.